Welcome to episode 176 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Merica edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm here with my co-host, an iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman, and a scholar, and coming off of a lot of drinking games since we're doing this on July the 4th, one of the Jacksonville Jaguars' biggest fans. His name is Joshua Fine. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. Of course, it's July 4th, 1776. We are the champs, just like your boy old Richard would say.
Richard!
So, back-to-back World War champs, right? America, right? So, it's all American everything. So, ready to get into it, of course.
Well, two things that weren't American were the guys that won the NASCAR race and the IndyCar race. One, Shane Van Gisbergen, he of the Australian V8 Supercars, he of 80 wins in that series and 3 championships, likely on his way to a 4th. Went out there and put a whooping on the Cup guys in the rain, in the mixed conditions that were going on at the Chicago street course. And we'll talk all about that. First driver to win on debut in 60 years, so pretty big deal for Justin Marks and Trackhouse and the Project 91 deal for that to come off. So we'll get into all that and all the players that are in the points right now and what happened to them during the race on Sunday, which was cut. They cut 25% of the race because of likelihood of running into darkness, which, I mean, at that point, you might as well let them run all the way and see what happens. It affected some people in their pit strategies. Alex Palou went out there, won his 3rd consecutive IndyCar race at Mid-Ohio, and looks, if he was pretty dominant in 2021, I don't even know what to say about what he's doing right now. He looks like a guy that should be in Formula One. Granted, he's not going to be in a Red Bull, but I think he could hold his own. Palou is doing work. And then there's news today, and we'll get into that as well during the recap of the Honda Indy 200 Mid-Ohio. You know who won in Austria, both in the sprint and in the regular race. Charles Leclerc finished 2nd, and Sergio Perez from 15th finished 3rd in the race on Sunday. So that was something there. And Logan Sargent got his best career finish in Formula One and passed Nick DeVries in the point standings. Neither of them have a point yet, but he is ahead of Nick DeVries by best finish. We'll get into F2 and F3 at Red Bull Ring, and we'll also do a preview for Silverstone. World Superbikes are at Donington. Indy Next was at Mid-Ohio last week. We'll get into the World Supercross GP last week in Birmingham in the UK. And then we'll talk about IMSA at Mosport, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Supercars at Townsville, which might be the most watched Supercars race ever, or weekend ever. Extreme Island X Prix, which will have a big name making their debut. And WEC and F1 Academy at Monza. We'll do previews for both of those. We will make sure to keep our Formula One timing correct while we're doing the British Grand Prix preview and picks. Before we bring out the Tate Fogelman algorithm for Cup and XFinity at Atlanta, and to be fair, we might as well do it for trucks because there's nobody in that truck race, so we could use it for that one just for the sake of it, for fun, for bleeps and giggles, because they'll be at Mid-Ohio. Josh will let us know all things going on in the world of iRacing and gaming in his sim segment, and we'll call it a day. But yeah, first of all, we got to get into the Cup race because there really wasn't an Xfinity race. What is said as NBC Sports most watched NASCAR race in 6 years. Shane Van Gisbergen goes out there, wins the Grant Park 220, started third, was fastest in practice, and I think they won a whole $30,000 or something for doing that too, which is hilarious, because they're an open car. But SVG goes out there, passes Justin Haley with 9 laps to go in the race, with 9 laps or 8 laps to go in the race, or 7, something like that. 7, 8 laps to go, whatever. It says 71 to 78, so I'm just going to assume it's like 6, 7 laps to go. And he led 1 lap earlier in the day. Shane Van Gisbergen gets the win for Project 91 and Trackhouse. Justin Haley from 37th, so tailback, as Rusty Wallace likes to say. William Clyde Elliott the second, finished third. Kyle Larson fourth. Kyle Busch hit the tires early in the race, went a lap down, got pulled out of the tires, and came back and finished fifth. Gumby Cindric from 31st to 6th. Michael McDowell, Joey Logano, Keebler Gibbs, and Christopher Buescher round out your top 10. Denny Hamlin started on pole, hit the wall or one of the tire barriers and had some issues, but was able to recover to 11th. We'll get into some of the other players like Christopher Bell, who ended up 18th, Tyler Reddick, who ended up 28th, and Martin Truex, who ended up 32nd, basically holding a bag, even though they all were probably 3 of the best cars in the racetrack, along with SVG. But, 60 years since a driver has made one in their debut. That was the great Lone Star JR, Johnny Rutherford, the 3-time Indianapolis 500 winner, winning what is now a dual race. It was a 100-mile qualifying race back in those days at Daytona, and they were giving out points. They do give out points for the top 10 or whatever the hell. I forget how they do it. They give stage points, I think, is what they do these days. But they gave out full points for that. And Johnny Rutherford won on debut, driving for Smokey Yunick. And this is the first time that's happened since, which is insane. And the Chicago street course, good, bad, or indifferent, people wanted to hate on it. Honestly, once the racing got going, these guys, they had their issues, but there was an interesting race. I think the weather definitely affected some of the strat, but I also know, and then because of the darkness, they didn't get to run the full distance, which I think would have made strategy even better, more interesting. SVG had to come through the field to win the race. It's not like it was kind of handed to him on a platter. The only guy who was heel towing, so I was really happy that the Ricky Rudd camera came back, because somebody is actually doing heel tow. And he won. It was him and Scott McLaughlin, Josh, for all those years in the Supercars, battling each other, 2 Kiwis. It's not like we're not aware that there are great Kiwi drivers, insert Scott Dixon's name. But, it just seems ever since Scott Dixon came here in the late 90s, there's just been an influx of great drivers from New Zealand. And we have Scott McLaughlin in IndyCars now. We have Earl Bamba, who's been driving sports cars for forever. But now Shane Van Gisbergen puts his name in the record books, and it sounds like, based on what Jamie Whincup said, he might be allowed to go and drive NASCAR next year. So I guess if Dale Jr. needs a driver for the 8 car, so I guess that might be an option. But crazy to think that a guy on debut goes out there and wins a cup race, but under the circumstances that were given, I think it was the perfect storm for Shane Van Gisbergen.
Yeah, it definitely was the perfect storm for everything that happened. First of all, he has the advantage of being on a street course, which comprises a good majority of the Supercars schedule. A lot of courses on there that he has experience on, so he knows the ins and outs of how to navigate a narrow course and how to operate his car on streets rather than on pavement designed for racing like we see at other tracks. So I think he had that going for him. Also, I mean, obviously the next gen car very derived from Australian V8 supercars, very much inspired there. So very similar to that. The only thing he has to get adjusted to is being on the left side versus the right side, which I feel like isn't really that big of a difference. But I guess, from your orientation, definitely something that can be a big difference there. And also shifting on with your right hand versus your left hand, I guess that's a big difference too. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty interesting seeing him, prepare for the race. Obviously, they showed him, like you said, heel towing in the corners, which I think he might have been the only guy in the whole field that was doing that. And I was actually kind of shocked because, you don't really need to do that anymore in cup cars. And then also, I feel like for me personally, like I probably would be more likely to heel toe if I was in a manual 6-speed rather than a sequential manual. I feel like, it's more purposeful in a 6-speed, so stick shift. So seeing somebody operate the sequential stick shift with heel toe shift, definitely a kind of an interesting technique there. And I think it helped pay off for him. Obviously, his driving style worked really well with the street course, and he was faster than everybody. I mean, his third fastest lap was still faster than the entire field during the entire race. So that just tells you just how quick he was as a driver throughout that entire event. So yeah, obviously you got to give a lot of credit to Trackhouse, give credit to Justin Marks for being able to put this deal together, and shows just how prepared that they are for this as a team for Trackhouse, that they're willing to put the best stars from around the world in a cup car and give them the best opportunity to win a race and be competitive. And I think he was definitely the perfect fit for this. And yeah, I definitely think it gives the opportunity for him to come to NASCAR next year if he wants to. The opportunity's there if he's able to get into a cup car next year and get in a full-time deal. Would love to see him try out ovals, try out all the rest of the schedule and everything. So yeah, I think he was obviously the best candidate to probably win a race so far for this unique deal that Trackhouse is trying to do with getting international motorsport stars into the Cup Series for a one-off. Obviously Kimi Räikkönen has done this now twice, but he's had to adjust a little bit to the Cup car and had some bad luck happen, of course. But we'll have to see who's next to go on this one-off adventure. I do think also it could lead to the possibility of Penske preparing a one-off maybe next year at Chicago if they have it for Scott McLaughlin, and have the two Kiwis go at it again in the Cup Series in cars that they're very capable of driving and can be competitive in, as we saw what Van Gisbergen was able to do. So yeah, it should be an interesting deal if they're able to do it. But I think it also just shows the capability of what the Cup cars can do with the right talent behind it. And then also I think it does raise the profile of NASCAR around the world, and especially in Australia and New Zealand. So just the fact that he was able to get people to follow it. I mean, obviously you have Supercars getting their fans interested in the event because of his presence there. So I think that's a good thing, and definitely help raise the profile of motorsports for everybody. So yeah, I mean, it was almost not a weekend, of course. I mean, rain and everything plagued the event. So we'll have to see City of Chicago if they want to renew it for next year, if they want to take the option to not come back. We'll have to see. But yeah, I think for NASCAR, I think it is ultimately end up being a success, and hopefully they're able to put it on again next year if they're able to do it. And I do hope that they're able to figure out a way to get the drainage working so the streets aren't flooded so badly, and maybe we don't have so much delay with it. But at the same time, it was a good good event, I think, when all things considered. So yeah, glad we were able to see that, and glad we were able to see a international guy take his first Cup win in his first start.
Yeah, I mean, there was plenty of naysayers, and I didn't know what to think of it. On Saturday, once they actually got the practice going, they were able to get those cars out there. Both series were able to run. They were able to run their qualifying, practice and qualifying, and it didn't look all that bad. And some of the best drivers in NASCAR, I mean, best drivers in the world, BS, but made mistakes, like Clyde, like Kevin Harvick, etc., etc. Denny Hamlin, what do you call Tyler Reddick, Kyle Busch. I mean, Noah Gragson, I think, had a bet on or something to see how many times he could hit the wall and start doing burnouts. He did that 3 times during the race. Must have gotten his bag after the race. But I was pleasantly surprised at how stable of a platform it looked like. And I mean, in a sense, like, it shouldn't have been, but they've never done it before. And they presented well. They raced all right. SVG showed you could pass. A lot of guys showed they could pass. I mean, Haley needed strategy, but he held his own there up front. Once you lost track position, though, it became a real issue. See Denny Hamlin messing up. See Tyler Reddick messing up. And then, of course, Christopher Bell, who wins both stages and probably would have been a likely candidate to win the race, gets stuck because of pit strategy, and then the NASCAR SOD and Kennedy deciding to cut off 25% of the race. So that was neither here nor there, I guess. It was just a byproduct. It reminds me of Eric Almirola's likely last win of his career, which also Christopher Bell ended up finishing second in that race at New Hampshire because they had issues with rain the whole day. It was getting dark. They cut the race short, I think, 9 laps, 10 laps, something like that. It was lap 291 or 292 of a 301 lap race at New Hampshire, and they cut the race short. And they made that kind of call that gave Eric Almirola a win. But 25% of the race is pretty extreme, especially when you're trying to go and plan out strategies and stuff. But oh well. I mean, I guess in the case of, AJ Allmendinger got stage points. You wouldn't expect any different. Didn't really have the finish he probably wanted. Bell wins both stages. That's good for him in his championship chase. Reddick that's a Tyler Reddick kind of deal where he runs up front and he looks really good, but then there might be one mistake or something goes wrong and then the finish doesn't fit. Unfortunate for him in that sense. Truex was another one who ran in the top 10 basically the whole day, and then incidents late and whatever basically left him with nothing to show for it. Suarez is another one. I mean, you look at Jenson Button. He started 8th, had a good car, and he got ran over. I'm trying to remember whether it was Eric Almirola or Buescher. Both of them, of course, finish ahead of him, I think, right? Or am I wrong? Eric Almirola finished 12th, yeah. So both of them finished ahead of Jenson Button, and they look pretty good. And that 15 car looked pretty good the whole weekend, too. So it shows that Stewart-Haas is capable of making a decent race car. They just don't give any of them to Chase Briscoe for whatever reason. So that's that in terms of the Cup race. I mean, it ran pretty clean through the first, 5 first 48 laps, there was 2 cautions caused by Gagson, and then 2 cautions caused by Alex Bowman, and his car caught on fire. And then it became a cluster after that. Big wreck. Then you had Reddick running and spinning. Truex overrunning turn 1. And then Richard and Bubba getting into it late, which basically determined the final result there. Now let's get into the driver points right now. Martin Truex leads the overall points standings by 9 points over William Byron. William Byron and Kyle Busch lead the playoff standings. Martin Truex leads the regular season points standings, so that's a great battle to look at as we get into the last few races of this regular season. Ross Chastain is in 3rd in points. Christopher Bell 4th. Kyle Busch is 5th. Yeah, so that's basically, it's not like there's anybody that's really getting screwed by the current situation. Harvick is plus 151 over the cut line. Buescher 104, plus 104. Brad Keselowski plus 91. The sweat starts with Darrell Walsh Jr. at plus 15. Keebler Gibbs is plus 6 over Daniel Suarez. Michael McDowell's minus 10 off the cut line. AJ Allmendinger minus 24. And Alex Bowman with his last place finish fell out of the 16. And now is 20th. But, I mean, now that we're going to another wild card race here this coming weekend, it's something to look at. Justin Haley with his second place finish moved himself up, tied with Austin Cindric, 2 points ahead of Corey LaJoie. William Clyde Elliott II is now in 24th, pretty close by the defending winner of the Quaker State 400 at Atlanta. So interesting to look at. If he gets the win, of course he's in, but he's making points at a clip right now that he could even point his way in if he keeps on a pace like that, which is crazy to think, given how many races he missed, and giving it. But I think it also speaks to how weak the second half of the regular field is when you're spotting guys like 10 races or whatever the hell he spotted. How many did he spot? He's at 11, so he spotted him 7 races. You got Bowman spotted him 3. Yeah. I mean, you're spotting guys 7 races and you're getting beaten by a guy and you're beating those guys. I'd be embarrassed. And that basically is my weekly rant against Stewart-Haas Racing. Because he's ahead of 3 of the 4 guys that are at Stewart-Haas Racing. Now, granted, one of them got an 8 trillion point penalty. And so that doesn't help. And I'm just hoping that Briscoe can eventually get past Austin Dillon, which would make me laugh. He also got penalized too. He's around 3 guys that got penalized as well, but not as bad as he did. He's still ahead of Gagson, though, and Ty Dillon, so there is that. SVG is now 36th in points, ahead of Jenson Button, who has now ran 2 races. So interesting to see that. Unfortunately, he won't be back the rest of this year, but it sounds like he might be back next year. The Xfinity race, the Loop 121, they had qualifying, but basically after qualifying it became a cluster with the rain. They had to postpone it due to lightning initially at the start of after the first stage was over, or after the second stage was over, I guess. Then they were waiting to try to do it on Sunday, had more rain. It was apocalyptic rain, it looked like at times on Sunday at Chicago. The window they had was going to be at 5 o'clock their time, which is 6 o'clock Eastern. So there was no way in hell that they were going to get that race started again. So they called it. Cole Custer led from pole, won both stages, and led every lap. Kind of like a Formula One race. John Hunter Nemechek, Justin Allgaier, Brett Moffitt, Austin Hill, Sammy Smith, Daniel Hemrick, Chandler Smith, and Parker Kligerman rounded out. And Kaz Gralla rounded out your top 10. Sheldon Creed had qualified second, but wrecked in qualifying, had to start tailback, got all the way to 11th. Credit to some of these smaller teams, Preston Pardis, the Mazda MX-5 driver on a regular basis, road course expert, finished 12th for his family team. Paludo 13th. Kyle Weatherman from 32nd to 14th. Alex Gwinnett filling in at 36 because Alex Lebeo's in the 35. 15th. Yeah, some of these other ones. I think Sage Karam probably had a better car than what it showed there. I think he could have finished much better. Connor Mozak had issues, but he was a fast race car. Justin Marks, I think, probably missed a shift and blew the crap out of that engine. Took out all the mosquitoes within a 5-mile radius and all the bugs within a 5-mile radius of Grant Park with his explosion. And then Andre Castro was using those AutoZone brakes that Jesse Uji got going and begging for money on Facebook and hit the wall in turn 1. So unfortunate for him. But yeah, Custer gets his second win of the year, and now Rick Ware Racing is going to have him run 3 races during the rest of this season. He's done that before, of course, over his Cup career. So now things are rolling for Cole Custer in a positive way, leading into Atlanta. I mean, now he's third in points, playoff points. Still only 7 drivers have won. So they have more races than Cup does left in their regular season, but I think Custer getting this momentum as a road course ace of sorts is something that plays in his favor with how many more road courses they have here as they come along in the next few weeks.
I mean, you talk about Cole Custer, and he's been pretty good so far this year on the road courses, so definitely could be a dark horse candidate to be a favorite for the title. And so far this season, been fairly consistent. Otherwise, now up to 3rd place in the standings. So definitely, even though he hasn't won yet on Oval so far this year, definitely a contender for sure. And we could be seeing him as part of that championship at the end of the year and everything. So, of course, led every lap, wasn't really challenged, but at least somebody at Stewart-Haas Racing is having some success there, albeit somebody is a former Cup driver there trying to reclaim his career in Xfinity. But the race itself, I mean, not really that encouraging from this perspective, of course, from the issues that they had. Of course, the 25 laps, 2 laps short of making it to halfway where they could have concluded the race, and a lot of people were questioning that decision. And of course, NASCAR goes out and pulls out the except in rare instances case that's in the rule book that a lot of people claim is etch-a-sketch there. So definitely issues there, unprecedented to do, but I guess because the scheduling dictated it, of course. So guess they had to bite the bullet and cancel the race and everything. So unfortunate that that ended up happening, but it is what it is. And at that point, when the race had been delayed and everything, and then also had been further canceled, did put a damper into the weekend, of course, for the whole sport, the momentum that it thought it was carrying into the Cup race. And I think, once the Cup race was able to get going, it kind of helped everything be better. But, I think if after the conclusion of this race, you probably were in the someone or some people might have been in that camp of this is just total cluster F there. So definitely problems that happen, of course, but can't really control the weather and everything. So unfortunately, have to end this race 2 laps short. But Cole Custer goes out, dominates the event, and like you said, Sheldon Creed came back from being put in the back and came back to mid-level in 12th place. So not a whole lot of passing, of course. Thought maybe it might be different with this car versus the Gen 7 car. Of course, this car seems to be a little bit better on road courses in terms of being able to pass and everything, because I think this one you're more prone to mistakes, but in the Xfinity car. But the total domination by Cole Custer there this past weekend.
Yeah, it was something where usually Xfinity races aren't as cut and dry, but in this case, because of the weather and because of all the circumstances, for Custer, he was able to go and make it work. So credit to him, and credit to all those guys and all the people that worked on those teams to make it work and make it happen. So Austin Hill still leads the playoff standings. John Hunter leads the regular season point standings. Cole Custer in third, and that's the order itself. Hill's 16 points behind John Hunter and Nemechek. Custer's 44 points out. Justin Allgaier 45. That's the battle for the regular season title. Allgaier is so that in. Then you have Chandler Smith, Sammy Smith, and Jeb Burton. All the winners: Josh Berry's plus 81, Sam Mayer plus 45, Sheldon Creed plus 42, Daniel Hemrick plus 33, and Riley Herbst on the bump plus 26 over Parker Kligerman. Brett Moffitt minus 68 off the cut. Bruckshot Jones minus 74. And in 15th. So he's going to need basically, that's really the battle. Bruckshot Jones and Moffitt could possibly point their way in. It's not really likely, but they could. After that, anybody who's a regular has to win. This is a good weekend for that, and we'll get into that later for sure. At Atlanta. Okay, let's move on to IndyCar and the domination from the guy who looks like he's 12, but he drives like an old hot shoe there, Alex Palou. What a performance on Sunday. Started fourth. Wasn't the fastest car initially, but then he was on primaries versus a lot of the other guys around him were on the alternate tires. Used those primaries in his first stint to go and run a few more laps. Overcut Colton Herta, the pole sitter. Overcut Graham Rahal, the outside pole sitter. And the Ganassi strategy got their guys out in the front and in the power positions with Palou and with Scott Dixon. And with those two guys, the two guys that I mentioned in Herta and Rahal having problems on pit road or having speeding penalties in the case of Herta, what looked like an opportunity for one of them to possibly go and get their first win of the year went by the wayside, and Alex Palou took that opportunity and ran with it. Won for the third consecutive race, and now and has a 110-point lead in the IndyCar Series Championship, 9 races in to their season. Won the Honda Indy 200 at Mid-Ohio by just over 5 seconds over his teammate Scott Dixon. Will Power was third. Christian Lundgaard fourth. Scott McLaughlin, defending race winner, fifth. David Malukas from 12th finished sixth. Best run of the year for him. David Malukas announced today that he's going to be leaving Dale Coyne Racing, surprising absolutely nobody. Now, where he's going to go is an interesting question. Obviously, every team, Honda team that has an opening, which is possibly Ganassi, probably Andretti, possibly Rahal, all of them would be looking and would gladly take the money that he brings to the table from his dad's company. And he's a talented driver. So he has his options for sure. Graham Rahal finished 7th. Pato Award from 25th to 8th. Made a mistake in qualifying, spun out, lost all of his fast laps, started tailback, and somehow or another got back to top 10. Marcus Armstrong, who I think I picked last week to win the race, or no, we picked, I picked Dixon and you picked Palou. I went, Marcus, why do I feel like I picked Marcus Armstrong recently? I might have. Oh, I did at Detroit. Okay, that's why. Yeah, so Armstrong gets another top 10. Alexander Rossi 10th. Herta from pole, and I mentioned all the issues. He finished 11th. Kyle Kirkwood, another one who had issues, and started third, but only finished 17th. A lot of replays came from Simon Pagenaud's massive wreck going down the back straightaway. The launch pad still exists down the back straightaway if you have a tire failure and you hit that curb, and he barrel rolled through that sand trap like Michael Andretti did, 25 years ago, like other drivers have done since then, and Mid-Ohio still hasn't fixed it. Thankfully, Simon Pagenaud was okay. Not okay to race, but okay walking all there, thankfully. Connor Daly got called in, subbed for him, finished 20th. Last car in the lead lap, and he was chasing the car he used to drive, which has Captain America driving it. Alex Palou is a story, Josh. He is on a heater, rarely seen in the IndyCar Series. Power last year won with just like the old Dale Earnhardt, pointing his way to a championship and just constantly getting top fives, and sneaking his wins and where he can, but he would get top five you to death, and that's how he won 7 championships. Dixon has won them every which way he can. Alex Palou's just trying to put them all out of reach when you get to ovals, and that's where his weakness is short ovals. And there's really only the Iowa doubleheader left that really stands. Toronto could be, but those are really the only 2 races, which are the next 2 stops on tour, actually, but that could hinder a likely second IndyCar championship for Alex Palou and his impending free agency, whether he's going to stay at Ganassi, whether he's going to McLaren, is he going to Formula One, what is he going to do? But it looks like he's going to have a lot more hardware to take with him wherever he goes.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I think, with Alex Palou, definitely been a dominant season, of course, since Indianapolis. Like I said, been saying last couple of weeks, if he didn't have the issue at the Indy 500, likely could have won that race at the end. And we could be talking about now 5 wins in a row for Alex Palou, now winning 4 out of the last 5 races. And, I think now he could win at Toronto. I think there's no reason to think why he couldn't win there. But I think, I can agree. Iowa, not really as great on the short ovals as elsewhere. So the doubleheader at Iowa might be the rest of the field's last best chance to try and get something from Alex Palou. Otherwise, I think this one's going to be all wrapped up for him very quickly if somebody else doesn't figure out something soon. But they again just capitalized on the weekend. He humbly says that this isn't dominant because, well, they didn't really dominate practice and qualifying. So I guess if they didn't dominate there, then can't say it's a dominant weekend. But of course, the race very dominant. So I think that's where it ultimately counts. So yes, he has been very dominant to the last month, 2 months of this season, and he's been somebody that we thought at the beginning of the year would really not have anything to produce because his situation with McLaren and Chip Ganassi. Is he somebody that's kind of a somebody that we shouldn't expect to produce anything. Kind of we think maybe he's on his way out, so they're just trying to fulfill the obligations and everything. But no, he's going out here and just kicking everybody's butt, and he's gonna be the champion this year probably if anybody can't do anything about it. So I think for Alex Palou, if he decides to go to Formula One, I mean, he's doing it in the right way possible by dominating the series and leaving nothing left on the table. And then, of course, on the other end, if he's staying here in IndyCar, I mean, obviously, we'll see which team he goes to. If he stays at Chip's Ganassi, or if he goes, somewhere else. Definitely showing just how good he can be in this series. And I think, with the way he's running, it's going to be tough for the rest of the field. But this race did, capitalize on Colton Herta's mistakes. Of course, Herta, won the pole and led 26 laps. So there was an opportunity there for him, but just another bad strategy call for Colton Herta that puts him back there in the back of the mid pack. So unfortunate ending there for him. The Palou again leading 48 laps. So fairly dominant there, especially for mid Ohio. Scott Dixon, Will Power rounding out the podium. And I think, we have to also talk about Christian Lundgaard for, the struggles that they've had, with Rahal, Letterman Lanigan racing this year. Graham Rahal also having a good weekend as well, starting second and then finishing seventh. So, Graham and Lundgaard having a great weekend for their team after, Titomila's very shaky season so far. So, good result for them. In the back of the field was watching the end of the race. Newgarden, Grosjean, DeFrancesco, VK, Callum Ilott, and even Kyle Kirkwood were all fighting for position. So even in the back of the mid pack sections, definitely still intense racing there. Of course, Newgarden, not really a result he needed, being only in 12th place. Definitely needs to still try to podium to have a shot at the title now in third place, 6 points behind Scott Dixon in second. So if he wants to have a opportunity at the title or even to improve his position, he's definitely got to not have these mid-pack finishes sandwiched in between his Indy 500 win and all the other results that he's had this season. So he's got to be better than that. Of course, you talked about Simon Pagenaud, his flip there. I mean, I've never seen an IndyCar flip like that in such a manner. I mean, I've seen the incident with, at ovals like Ryan Hunter-Ray, Ryan Briscoe getting into it at Fontana back in the day. That's about, I think, as wild as I've seen a flip. Obviously, we've seen Jay Howard, Scott Dixon, 2017 Indy 500. That incident there, Scott Dixon, flying into the wall. But I've never seen an IndyCar flip the manner that Pagenaud's flipped, really. So, obviously you mentioned Michael Andretti kind of doing that 25 years ago. Well, I wasn't watching IndyCar 25 years ago, so everything. But so personally for me, I was glad he got out, but would have flipped there. And shows from the safety perspective, definitely shows the safety of the car, and they're able to keep everything contained, and the driver's compartment did not get compromised during that. So Pagenaud, as walks away, maybe bell's a little bit wrong. At least he wasn't physically hurt in that one. And for Connor Daly being able to get in as a last minute entry without really any practice and going from 27th to 20th. Good solid weekend there as a fill in. So we'll see what he's able to do if Pagano is not cleared in the upcoming weeks to compete at Toronto. So yeah, that's pretty good. And then also got to talk about Ericsson and Rosenqvist getting into it very early on, first lap. Unfortunate ending for Marcus Ericsson. Of course, that's not what he needs to continue in his title fight. Now he's back in 4th place in the standings, so can't really afford a last place finish when Palou, your teammate, is going out there and dominating the field. So, yeah, I mean, it's fairly solid race here at Mid Ohio. So, glad we got to see it over the weekend. Of course, we'll hopefully have a good race at Toronto here in a few weeks, and we'll see how this championship continues to unfold.
Yeah, absolutely. Went over a lot there, and good point on picking up on what do you call the two Swedes taking. Well, it was what do you call Ericsson just flat lost it and took out Rosenqvist early in the race and ruined their days when they probably could have had top 10 runs. The one thing I wanted to bring up, which was glaringly obvious during the race, and it was an issue for multiple drivers, was Benjamin Pedersen, the AJ Foyt driver, basically doing his best impression of King Hiro, holding up everybody. I mean, and he didn't discriminate. He held up everybody. He held Alex Palou up for God knows how many laps. He held up Scott McLaughlin to the point where Scott McLaughlin talked to him, and Benjamin Pedersen basically ignored it. I don't know how many people, but I'm like, it's bad enough. Like, the only reason anybody knew about Benjamin Pedersen was because of that number deal that they had and the whole controversy about it. Then you take how bad he's been all year, sans Indy 500 qualifying. He's basically been arguably the worst driver in the series. Him and Stingray Robb are basically, have the same amount of points. There's only a 4-point difference between those two. I mean, the scary thing about Benjamin Pedersen is he's only 13 points behind Pagano. It tells you how bad Meyer Shank Racing is right now. I mean, Benjamin Pedersen, he brings money. He didn't really do much of anything of great significance in Indy Lights or in the other formulas. He brings the money to help AJ Foyt. It's more a thing to help Root Beer Floathead actually run good, but he's not very good. And he was like 30 seconds later into the crash at St. Petersburg in the first race of the year and ran through Devlin DeFrancesco and sent him flying. The last week going and being in the way of everybody and not having any awareness. Like, once you go a lap down, like, get the hell out of the way. I mean, it's like, I get the defense sorta when you're trying to stay on the lead lap, which was really the only thing that affected Alex Palou's run there late for the once he really got the lead. After you get lapped, you really shouldn't be defending anything at that point. You have to get out of the way. And if he's ignoring blue flags or whatever the hell the lap flags, you have to penalize him. So I don't know what they were doing, why they allowed it. Mid-Ohio is notorious for being brutal to pass on. He has to move out of the way. I mean, I don't care what his malfunction was that day. He just decided he wanted to be a hero today and he wanted to be King Hiro, obviously. That was a joke. He's a mediocrity. I'm pretty sure the way AJ Foyt Racing has run for the last, 30 years or whatever, he'll likely be around, but not because he's good. Because of the check's clear. So hopefully somebody got to him and somebody gets to him prior to Toronto, because if he does the same crap at Toronto, somebody's going to send him. and then probably punch him in the face too, which would be good actually. I would actually be pretty entertained. That would get more viewership on Peacock, since that race is going to be rendered to Peacock the whole entire weekend. All right. Yeah, the points I mentioned, 110-point lead for Palou over Dixon. Dixon has a 6-point lead over Newgarden. Marcus Ericsson is 12 behind Scott Dixon. Pato Award's 17 points behind. So that's the battle for second through fifth. Scott McLaughlin, Willpower, Rossi, Herta, Lundgaard, the top 10. Kirkwood in 11th. Grosjean and Rosenquist there. Rahal moves up to 14th with his top 10 run at Mid-Ohio at home. All right, so we'll go and we have to do our timer here. Just give me a second. Let me go and get my results ready so that we make sure and do our due diligence for Formula One. Just give me a second here. McLaren's going to run a part chrome car, but hopefully it looks better on the racetrack than it does in the pictures that they've sent so far. Fish Lips won the sprint, qualified on pole. It was a run in rain, at least initially, and him and Checo Perez got in a little bit of argy-bargy, but once that was over, 21 seconds victory over Perez and Carlos Sainz. The two Aston Martins finished 4th and 5th. The Mercedes struggled 8th and 10th for Russell and Hamilton, respectively. Leclerc had issues in the sprint qualifying, only finished 12th. Then in the race, in the actual race, Verstappen came in and put soft tires to set the fastest lap of the race, which was the only reason why the final gap was 5.155 seconds over Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez, as I mentioned, from 15th to 3rd. Lando Norris with the upgraded McLaren 4th. Fernando Alonso 5th. Carlos Sainz 6th. Russell, Hamilton, Stroll, Gasly rounding out the top 10. I mentioned Logan Sargent finishing 13th. Everybody after 11th, after Alexander Albon, were a lap down or out. Nico Hulkenberg fell out of the race. There was like 18,000 track limit violations during the whole entire weekend across all the series. Talked about it on Grid Talk about what they could do or what they should do. I mean, it's and they're going to be there until 2030. So if they really wanted to fix it, they could fix it. Will they fix it? Probably not. So I mean, I don't really think it's worth it, especially the way we go over Formula One these days, to really get into semantics of track limits. Niels Vittich decided he wanted to pretty much put an ironclad rule, and basically the vast majority of people fell afoul of that, outside of Fish Lips and maybe a few other people. What did you have any other takeaways from the race this past weekend? The sprint, even where Perez kind of sort of got into Fish Lips and he freaked out. No, okay.
Nothing took place there. The fastest 2 minutes and 30 seconds there.
Okay, yeah. So Verstappen's got nearly 100-point lead on Perez. Perez right now is 17 points ahead of Fernando Alonso and 42 ahead of Lewis Hamilton for second in the World Championship. Sainz leads Leclerc and Russell by 10 points for fifth. The battle, and Stroll's in his own world, basically. Ocon is 7 points ahead of Lando Norris, who is 8 points ahead of Pierre Gasly. In terms of the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull has near 200-point lead on Mercedes. Mercedes has a 3-point lead on Aston Martin. Ferrari is 24 points out of second, so they're actually in the mix now. Alpine is, 18, 18 points ahead of McLaren. And then the battle between 7th through 9th is actually, the last 4 teams are only separated by 9 points. Haas is only 2 ahead of Alfa Romeo, who is 2 ahead of Williams, and AlphaTauri's tailback. They'll be running in Silverstone this weekend. We'll give our previews here in a little while. The roundup, we'll get into that. Let's get going. F2 and F3 took place at Austria. We'll go with F3 first. And the winner, the results at Spielberg, Paul Aaron was a sprint winner, and Zach O'Sullivan, the feature race winner. Paul Aaron, let's go in here in the Paul Aaron, Gabriel Mini, Caio Collet, Zach O'Sullivan, Johnny Edgar were your top 5. Kalen Frederick, the American, 7th. Sebastian Montoya, 9th. I'm trying to look for some of these other people. Hunter Yaney, 19th, didn't do anything. Some of these other people are new. And then in the feature race, Zach O'Sullivan or Gabriel Bortoleto, Caio Collet, Franco Colapinto, and Daniel Beganovic. Johnny Edgar finished 6th. Trying to see who else. Montoya 20th, Yaney 21st. Paul Aaron had issues, finished 25th, and Kalen Frederick 26th. Saucy finished last. So the standings, Gabriel Bortoleto 36 points ahead of Marte and Beganovic. Good battle, actually, once you take Bortoleto out of this. From 2nd to 7th is only 15 points, so quite interesting there. There's definitely a lot of other people. There's some of these people that not even running anymore in the series, so something to look at there. We're trying to see here. Yeah, Caio Collet had a great weekend, probably his best weekend of the season. 23 points. Moved himself up a bunch of places. And then I'm trying to see, the sprint. Yeah, Paul Aaron won the sprint, but left with nothing in the feature. F2, the results from Austria. Jack Crawford wins the sprint. So his first win in Formula 2. And Richard Vachor wins the feature race. So a big deal. American driver gets a win in the sprint there. Jack Crawford over Victor Martins and Isaac Hadjar. Juan Manuel Correa gives 2 Americans in the top 5. Roman Stanek rounds out the top 5. Try to go through here. Season Iwasa was 11th. Benavides, the American, 12th. Kushmaini was 16th. Zane Maloney finished last. In terms of the feature race, Richard Vachor over Iwasa, Vesti, Jack Doohan, Ollie Bierman. Enzo Fittipaldi finished 6th. Teo Pocher, Jack Crawford, Martins, Jehan Daruvala finished 10th. We'll go through there. Yeah, so Daruvala was missing there, so that's interesting. Frederick Vesti maintains his points lead by 20 over Pocher and 24 over Iwasa. None of them scored in the sprint, but they all, Vesti and Iwasa did pretty well in the feature. Vachor moves himself up to 5th with his feature race win. only 6 points behind Ollie Bierman. Enzo Fittipaldi, there's 8th, Kushmini 10th, a point ahead of Zane Maloney, and 8 ahead of Jan Daruvula. Jack Crawford, 14-point haul, now is only 11 points out of the top 10. Close battle there with Leclerc, Beauchamp as well. All right, so World Superbikes at Donington. I'll just go and take a wild guess and say that Alvaro Bautista won. And survey says yes. He won he won the 2 regular races. The Super Pole race, he finished second to Toprak Raskatlioglu. Bautista, Raskatlioglu, Ray in race 1. And they just swapped the positions in the Super Pole race, and Ray was 3rd. In race 2, Bautista won over Raskatlioglu and Danilo Petrucci. Right now, Bautista is 93 points, or 9. Or is it? No, no, I'm wrong on that. 7. He's got a big points lead. I'm not trying to go and do the effing math. He's got a big points lead. He's been winning all year, and 93. I was right. There you go. I knew I was right. I don't know what I was looking at there. So 93-point lead on Raskatlioglu. Locatelli's 3rd, Ray 4th, Bassani 5th. Garrett Gerloff 14th in points right now. Only 8 points out of 11th, but there's a huge gap after that. Once you get past that, you have a big points gap. 6th through 10th is only 10 points separating those guys. Next race on the World Superbike calendar will be at Imola in next week, so we'll talk about it then. Indy next was in Mid-Ohio, and the results there, Louis Foster gets the victory over Kiffin Simpson. Christian Rasmussen qualified on pole, led the most laps, ends up finishing 3rd. Hunter McElroy 4th. Reese Gold 5th. And I'm trying to go through here. Jamie Chadwick gets her first top 10 of the season. Ernie Francis Jr. was 13th. The standings. We're going to the standings right now. Nolan Siegel leads teammate Christian Rasmussen by 16 points. McElroy is 3rd. Louis Foster and Jacob Abel round out the top 5. Got Ernie Francis Jr. I mentioned. He's just outside of the top 10. 2 points behind Enam Ahmed. And Jamie Chadwick is tied for 16th in points with Josh Green. So she has a little bit of room to make up there. So we'll see how she does as the season goes on. They'll be racing in Toronto in a couple weeks' time. FIM World Supercross Grand Prix at Birmingham, UK. The great Ralph Shaheen, former guest of the GSP, along with Jeff Emig. They were calling the races this past weekend, and the winners in the 450 category. Trying to go here. Let's get back in there. Trying to get the results. It would be nice if they had it. If they had them like obvious. Reigning champions at the mark. So number 1. Yeah. So Ken Roczen went first, second, and first in the 3 mains. and Shane McElrath on the 250 class finished 1-2-1 in 250s. The overall podium for 450 class, or WSX class as they call it, was Roxon, Joey Savacci, and Vince Friese. Max Anstey and Enzo Lopes rounded out the podium behind or next to Shane McElrath. So, credit to those guys. Their next event will be at the end of September in Singapore. So, any of those guys that were racing in on the motocross deal, they'll get back to the motocross racing here this coming weekend. Even though it doesn't really matter for some of them because of the brothers and how good they're doing this year in general. IMSA will be at Mosport this coming weekend for the Chevy Grand Prix, and we'll go and bring that up here. That Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, aka Mosport. Got the entry list. They'll have the Michelin Pile Challenge and a VP Sports Car Challenge as well there. They'll have a 34 car entry list here this weekend. 8 cars in the GTP category. Of course, the customer Porsche with JDC Miller there. Everybody else, the usual suspects. The 2 Penske Porsches, 2 BMWs. Of course, BMW ends up winning the 6 hours at the Glen due to penalty. The 2 Acuras, and then the 2 Cadillacs, one from Ganassi and one from Whelen Engineering. In LMP3, there will be 6 cars in that category. 2 cars from AWA, 1 from Ave Motorsports. JR3, Sean Creek and Riley Motorsports, which is Gar Robinson, Felipe Fraga. 4 Lieges, 2 Duquesnes. Then in the GT Pro category, only 5 cars. The Corvette for Garcia and Taylor. The Pfaff Motorsports Porsche for Bachler and Pile. The Vassar Sullivan Lexus, who comes off the victory at the 6 hours with Hawksworth and Barnicoat. Ross Gunn, Alex Riberos in the Harder Racing Aston. Juncadella and Jules Gugnon in the WeatherTech Racing Mercedes. 14 cars in the GT Daytona category. 2 cars from Turner Motorsports. They moved the Bill Auberland car back into the GTD category this week, along with their usual teammate in the 96 with Robbie Foley, Patrick Gallagher. The 2 Kelly Moss Porsches. AO Racing with their Porsche with Seb Prio. The Lamborghini, the only Lamborghini representative, Forte Racing, Misha Goikberg. Trent Hinman, Wright Motorsports Porsche. The Inception McLaren. In terms of the Acura, it's the Gradient Racing Acura with Sheena Monk and Catherine Legg. And Catherine Legg was looking good in her bathing suit, celebrating the 4th of July. Windward Racing Mercedes, Russell Ward, Philip Ellis, Mike Skeen, Mikhail Grenier, the Canadian, Korthoff Motorsports Mercedes. Roman DeAngelis, another Canadian, Marco Sorensen, Harder Racing Aston, Frankie Montecalvo, Aaron Tielitz for Vassar Sullivan. Of course, they also won at the 6 hours at the Glen. And then Brian Sellers, Madison Snow, the Paul Miller Racing BMW. And that's the field there, 34 entries at Mosport this coming weekend. The promotions for the Supercars after Shane Van Gisbergen won was pretty high on socials. I think if NASCAR fans watch it, There'll be it'll seem familiar because there's one dominant manufacturer, and that is Chevrolet. Townsville 500. That will. I'm trying to see over here. Just getting the point standings. The Reed Park Street Circuit, so Queensland, and then it wouldn't be a shocker that SVG goes back there and goes and wins. He hasn't won a race since race 7, actually, at the end of April, interestingly enough, at Perth. And as of the start of the season, he's only won 3 rounds so far in the championship. So figure it's a good time for him to get started and winning more. Point standings, Brody Kostecki for the Erebus Coca-Cola team leads his teammate Will Brown by 59 points. Brock Feeney, the Red Bull Ampol Racing AAA team, is 91 points out of the lead in third. Shane Van Gisbergen in fourth, minus 110. Closest Ford is Chaz Mostert in fifth, 179 points behind Cam Waters, who's actually won a race this year due to the penalties for SVG and Brock Feeney. The only time a Ford's won all year, he's seventh in points. You're trying to fix BOP, but I don't know if they're going to fix it by the end of this season. I have a hard time believing, unless they take a really hard look at it, that they're going to make the changes necessary to make it competitive. It seems like the same deal that Ford's going through in NASCAR, especially in the Cup category. In terms of Extreme, the big news is Carl Cox Motorsports has hired Leah Block to race in Sardinia to finish out the season for them. That was announced here yesterday. So big deal for her to go and race. And then Sebastian Loeb is going to be racing for the Apt Cupra team. So in place of Nasser Al-Attiyah, series male champion, Odyssey 21 championship. Oh, I don't know what that means. Oh, Donovan, James Stiss, Ray Patrick. Oh, okay. So British riders hard, extreme not be unfamiliar. O'Donovan alongside Tamara. Okay. And will partner. Okay, Tamara Molinaro. All right. I don't know where they have the entry list or any of that for the Island X Prix, but they'll be racing here this weekend, and then they'll take a couple months off for a to-be-determined race. Molly Taylor, Kevin Hansen lead the points by 11 over Layla Sands and Matthias Ekstrom. And the Rosberg team is in third. The Lewis Hamilton team in fourth. And the Ganassi team is in fifth. So we'll just go with that because I'm not trying to get into all the... Yeah, Clara Anderson, Nasser Al-Attiyah, he's racing the Rally Raid Championship. Leah Block, yeah, there you go. They haven't put the big... Herta, Hosas, and Andreas Backrud for Jensen Button's team. Amanda Sorensen, RJ Anderson for Chip Ganassi. I'm not trying to pronounce the lady driver's name. It's Michaela. That's it. And then Johan Kristofferson's a male driver. I don't want to butcher it. So yeah, we'll give you the results of that next week. We'll do F1 Academy briefly, or try to keep it brief. I've ran plenty long. the F1 Academy, the point standings leading into this weekend's events at Monza. Marta Garcia is now only 5 points ahead of Hamda Al-Kabasi, or Kabasi, after she won 2 of the 3 races. Buhler third, Nuria Marti fourth, and Abby Pulling was fifth, and Amna Al-Kabasi is in sixth. Dehus, Bustamante, Jessica Edgar, and Schreiner round out the top 10. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that series now that the championship is so close. Last thing we'll go over here is Monza for the 6 hours there for the WEC. Ferrari coming home to race in the at Monza after winning the 24 Hours of Le Mans. So that's a huge deal for them. So it's going to be a circus for sure. In terms of the World Endurance Drivers Championship, the Toyota team of Hartley, Hirakawa, and Buemi, 25-point lead over Alessandro Perguidi, Antonio Giovinazzi, and James Collado, the winners of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Third place is the Ganassi team of Alex Lynn, Earl Bamba, and Richard Westbrook. Then the second Ferrari is in fourth, and second Toyota is fifth. And the first Porsche, the Porsches are in sixth and seventh. And Pla, Dumas, and Jean-Eric Verne. I think that's... Yeah, Pla and Dumas, I think, were driving for Glickenhaus, and then that's the first Peugeot there. Then in manufacturers, Toyota leads over Ferrari by 18 points. And World Cup for hypercars, yeah, that's Jota Sport. Endurance Trophy for LMP2, Louis Delatraz, Robert Kubica, and Rui Andrade lead the points over the winners at the 24 Hours Le Mans, Albert Costa, Shearer, Schmikowski. So 4 points, so that's very close. LMP2 teams, WRT, 4 points ahead of Inter Europol. Then in GT AM drivers, Ben Keating, Nicky Katzberg, Nicholas Verone for the Chevy Corvette team have a huge points lead over the Aston Martin team, Al Harthy, Eastwood, and Dynan. I think they could lock the championship up this weekend with a good points haul. Corvette Racing could also lock up the team's title in their last season as a factory effort if they have a good run at Monza. So yeah, that is all for the roundup. We'll make our picks for the British Grand Prix. I have to go back and look and see if you picked first or I picked first last week.
I picked first for F1 last week.
Okay, so it's weirdly... Okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah, so Fish Lips, and then in second place, I will go with... What did I say? I think I went Lewis. I said this on the Grid Talk preview, that I'm going Fish Lips, Lewis, and Checo as my top three. So floor is yours, Josh, on who you look at after Fish Lips.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go Verstappen, and then I want to go Leclerc. I think he's got some good pace, then Lewis take a podium in a home Grand Prix. So that's what I'll go with.
Checo, and then Josh Fishlips. You said Leclerc and LH.
Lewis.
Okay. All right. So there you go. Nice and easy. All right. So now we can move into the fun part here. We'll start with the trucks. I don't know if we really need to get the algorithm out because it's a truck race, but whatever. It's a truck race. We'll get into the O'Reilly Auto Parts 150. 38 trucks for 36 spots. Some interesting changes. Oh, Norm Benning already withdrew. That's a shame. It's not like he was going to qualify anyway. There's a TBA on... there's a couple to be determined drivers. 0-2 for Youngs. The 34 for Rium. So probably means that those trucks might withdraw, and if those two withdraw, then there'd only be 36. The legendary Dale Quarterly, I don't know, he has to be 180 at this point, is driving for that maggot prick in the 46 truck. William Sawalich, who's not making any friends with the way he drives in ARCA, is running the one truck for Tricon. Landon Lewis will be in the 04 for Roper. That's actually a Chevy? Okay, all right, I guess. The 7, it says it don't have anybody also, so that's interesting. I'll go back here for a second. Yeah, they don't... doesn't say anything about them with the 7, so that might be another one. Go through here. Anybody that's really like throws anything off. Austin Wayne Self randomly is returning, which nobody gives a fuck about. Grant Enfinger will be running Sunseeker Resort on his 23 truck. Brian Vargas will be driving the 30 for On Point. And Connor Daly will be driving the 41 for Nice. And let's see, Jack Wood in the 51, Timmy Hill in the 56, the family truck. Connor Jones will be in the 66 for Thor Sport. So, okay. I mean, you could go and bring out the algorithm at this point. Like,
actually.
Oh, nice. All right, even better. So, okay, so with that, I'll just go here and get out of the way because that's one of our most entertaining bits that we do here. No, because Parker Kligerman is at Atlanta, so he won't be able to run. So that loses a big player in this race. I'm trying to look through this field, and I'm like, holy crap, there's nobody that really stands out to me that could do anything. I'm like, do any of these guys? I mean, I have to pick Zane Smith because I'm like, just process of elimination. Zane Smith, he has a get your name on his truck deal. I don't know if it's still going, but Tipico Sportsbook, if you paid $38 to open an account on that sportsbook, you could get your name on his truck or something. So I think it probably is done by now. I'll go with Zane Smith. My wild card selection for this weekend's race will be my wild card will be, I mean, you have to you have to go and figure out who is theoretically in the wild card picture. Because, I mean, even Corey Heim hasn't run all the race, but that's 18, 19, 1, so it's the top 10 or top 11. All right, so that actually, it works. So I'm going to pick Tanner Gray. as my wild card. So, trucks at Mid Ohio. Phil goes with Zane Smith to win, and Tanner Gray wild card. Josh, it's all yours. The algorithm is alive and well.
It's alive, well, it's thriving. So the algorithm, it picks Corey Heim. So it's starting to get better, picking the top guys rather than randos like Tate Fogelman, who it's named after. But it picks Corey Heim in the 11. I guess my personal pick here, I'll go Ben Rhodes and Connor Daly as my wild card, given that Connor Daly was just there this past weekend in the IndyCar. So I don't know, maybe that's some kind of advantage having been there already before everybody else is. Different series, different car, but hey, I mean, he knows the layout, so shouldn't have too many problems getting around there compared to the rest of the field.
And depending on the weather conditions, it could really fall into his hands. I mean, that Justin Marks won his one XFinity race there for Ganassi because of the wet conditions. There's been sketchy conditions over the years there for some of these events. So if rain comes into play, I mean, it might really help out for Connor Daly, because that 41 truck's kind of been off the pace this year relative to where they had been in other years. Probably because they're putting such an emphasis on trying to put over Carson Hocevar. But hey, we'll see. I think it's an opportunity race for them. They want him to go and win that deal. Now that Hocevar's won 2 races, he's locked into the playoffs, so it's not like they really have to be worried about their situation. Alsco Uniforms 250, they'll be running, I think, on Saturday night. They'll qualify in the afternoon. They're 39 for 38 in that race. Let's see. Mason Maggio will be in the 07 for SS Greenlight. Also 2 Masons. Mason Massey will be in the 08. Justin Haley will be in the 10 for Colleague. Keebler Gibbs in the 19. Parker Chase in the 24 for Sam Hunt. Nobody in the Emerling Gase 35 listed as of now. Weatherman in the 36 for DGM. Graf in the 38 for RSS. Greg Van Alts, the ARCA driver, won the Daytona ARCA 200 earlier this year, is in the 44. Let's see. Akinori Ogata will be in the 53 for Emerling Gase. Chad Fincham for MBM trying to make the show there for Carl Long's team. Josh Balicki in the 91. Josh Williams returns to the scene of the crime where he parked his car on the front straightaway and walked away. And Kyle Sieg will be in the 28 car. So one car will fail to qualify from this race. Just don't know who that'll be as of now. So since Josh has the algorithm going, for me, I mean, the easy pick is Austin Hill, because he seems to win these races anyway. So we'll go with Austin Hill. He hasn't won in a while. And the wild card, it's definitely wild. I'm going to go with Jeffrey Earnhardt because it's not like, because he's not driving an RCR car. So it is a wild card. When he was driving that RCR car last year and had Larry McReynolds as his crew chief, he looked like Superman. But driving for Alpha Prime, it's not the same deal. So XFinity, At Atlanta, Phil goes with what do you call? I'm Austin Hill to win, and Jeffrey Earnhardt wild card. So, floor's yours, Josh. Let's see if it can be really entertaining. It was kind of boring with the trucks, so let's see if we can pick up a good one this time.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll start out myself first, but I mean, me, I'm gonna go. Let's see, yeah, I'm gonna go Sheldon Creed here because yeah, he needs to win here, and I mean, you're gonna go with the 21 and Austin Hill. I'll go with his teammate. I think Sheldon Creed also is capable of being good at this track as well, so I'm gonna go with Sheldon Creed. I know that in itself is a bit of a wild pick there, but I'm gonna go with it because I think he's capable of winning super speedway race at Atlanta. And my wild card pick, I will pick Anthony Alfredo. He's another guy that could randomly show up in the top 10 at the end of the day. So I think he's definitely a guy that's capable of doing that here. Even though he's in the 78th car for BJ McLeod, so definitely going to be a tall order there. And then of course the algorithm. Well, the algorithm generates Parker Kligerman as the winner here at Atlanta, which almost damn near happened back in March. So definitely could happen, but yeah, Parker Kligerman certainly could see him winning too. That's what the algorithm says.
Solid, definitely solid, and very, very likely. Two very likely scenarios so far picked by Tate Fogelman. We'll see what it says for the Quaker State 400. Atlanta, they'll be running at night again because I think it was like 120 degrees or whatever last year when they ran this race in July, so they don't want to do that again. 37 for 40. The only difference is Austin Hill will be entering with Beard Motorsports. BJ McLeod's actually back in the 78. Cole Custer is going to run one of his 3 races for Rick Ware in the 51. Worldwide Express for Chastain. Menards and Quaker State will be on Cindric's car. Dow salutes veterans for Bald Spot Dylan. Hunt Brothers Pizza on the car for Kevin Harvick in his last start at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Richard Childress is going to be driving the car that Harvick won his first career race in around the track and giving the command to start engines. So that'll be cool. Brad Keselowski driving Castrol Edge car. He got really close to winning and breaking that losing streak earlier this year. Cheddars will be on Kyle Busch's car. Chase Elliott says Napa and Children's. As well as probably might be a kid's design scheme or something. Smithfield IHOP on the Eric Almirola car. Coca-Cola for Denny Hamlin. Worth for Ryan Blaney. Magical Vacation Planner MVP for Chase Briscoe. Whatever Patriot Mobile is for JJ Yaley. Farm Smart for Allmendinger. And trying to go through some of these other ones. Nothing crazy. Haley doesn't have anything listed as of now. Gillen driving the Georgia Peanuts car. Sony Mobile ES for Ryan Preece. No sponsors listed for either of the legacy cars. Slim Jim. Snap into a Slim Jim. Ooh, yeah! For O. Richard. And Jacob Companies for Cole Custer. I'm not even going to say that. Bennett Transportation for Austin Hill. Ray's Energy for Ty Dillon. Gunk for BJ McLeod, and Quaker State for Daniel Suarez. So 2 Quaker State cars. Okay, so for me, let's see. I mean, there's a lot of people that need a win. I could go Bubba, but that would be too obvious. I could get really crazy here, and I'm tempted to, but I honestly think that you know what, I'm gonna go with Brad Keselowski. Sort of pseudo homer pick. Not like I'm a fan of his like I was when he drove the Miller car, but he got close there. He ran well at Daytona. The super speedway package at Roush RFK is pretty darn good. Him and Buescher work very well together. Lock himself into the playoffs. It's a time to do it. And if he can do it at Atlanta, would be huge for Brad K. And I mean, as it stands, I mean, it is it comes with an asterisk in a sense because he hasn't run every race, but 19 29 30 31 31 29, so it's 15. All right. I'm going with Clyde as my wild card. He's a defending race winner, but I'm just going with the technicality. I can do it. So, and WCE2 wild card as wild card. So, yeah, last licks here, Josh. Quaker State 400.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, let's see, yeah, I'm gonna go Ryan Blaney. You know, I felt like he should have won this race back in the spring, and I think the Fords, they're gonna be up front. You already picked Brad Case, so the Fords, they're gonna be dominant in this race, just like they were back in the spring, just like, you know, they have really focused on in the super speedways here this year. So yeah, I'll pick him. Wild card, I'll go with last year's wild card pick, Corey LaJoie. He should have been a guy that won this race last year, had an opportunity on the final lap to get up there, and ended up crashing out on the last lap. So if he wins, I mean, could put a wrinkle in the playoffs. He's definitely somebody that can shake up things. I think last year, had he won, he was still outside of the top 30 and would have made a difference. But this year, 23rd in the standings and one spot above Chase Elliott, so definitely could shake things up if he is able to win the race. And then the algorithm picks Daniel Suarez, another guy who needs a win to, you know, maintain his playoff eligibility. So yeah, it's getting smarter. I mean, Daniel Suarez wins, that'll be 3 Trackhouse wins in a row. You know, Chastain back in Nashville, Van Gisbergen for the Project 91 Trackhouse, and then you have Suarez potentially winning here according to the algorithm. So that'd be Trackhouse after basically being gone like for maybe a month and a half. Now all of a sudden they look like maybe they're back on the map potentially. So yeah, that's what the algorithm says.
Yeah, and I mean, for Suarez, it's true what you said. I mean, he does need a win. The road courses are probably more suited to him, and what do you call him? I'm forgetting his crew chief name, but those guys, they do a really good job on those road courses. But it's an opportunity, as we always say with these super speedway type races. I mean, Blaney is as solid as you can go. He always seems to be up front. He kind of has that same mentality that he got from his teammate Joey Logano and former teammate Brad Keselowski. Him and Bubba were racing for the win at Talladega earlier this year, and Bubba threw one bad block and took out I don't know how many people, including his bestie, and that allowed Kyle Busch to win that race. So we'll see how that all works at the slot car track that is Atlanta Motor Speedway. Obviously, if Corey LaJoie or Chase Elliott wins, if you're guys like Gibbs, Wallace, Suarez, McDowell, and Allmendinger, just to name a few. I mean, Alex Bowman even. You're going to start sweating and you're going to need a win. And you're probably going to be pushing to do something here in these next few weeks. So we got all that just to make sure. Yes, we do. Alrighty. So from there, we move to the sim segment. Josh, let us know what's going on in the world of iRacing and in gaming.
I mean, this week, this past couple weeks or days, I've been racing Daytona in the 87s. I think they're on the schedule again, or they were on the schedule again to mimic the Firecracker 400 from back in the day. But ran that and had a little bit of struggles. Came back in one race where just had a lot of hits on the wall and almost took myself out, and just had tons of repairs and stuff, and almost fell a lap down. Got lucky on a caution, and just had to take a bunch of pit stops to get repairs and knock out my repair time. But and then I had a chance at the end. I thought I was the best on, because like everybody was on same tires, but I had the Ford and everybody else had the Chevy or the Buick, and tried to start making my way up. Like I was thinking like fifth, try to start making my way up into the top three for the last 5 laps of the race, and just ended up because leader stayed out on old tires, and then quickly started falling behind, and then I guess somebody on the outside had to run, try to make it 3 wide, and then try to avoid the guy on old tires, and then got me in the door, and then lost control and hit the wall again, and ended up taking more damage and pretty much knocking out all the time that I had erased on my damage clock and everything, and then pretty much ended my race there, but still ended up finishing 10th, which is okay. And then I think another one I just crashed out of completely there. And then I think I did a few on the Daytona road course with the BMW GT4. I think I did one there, and the Honda Civic also. So yeah, I ran that a couple of times, which is nice, running the road course there and those cars and everything. But yeah, that's this week. I think we have on the schedule. Atlanta is on the schedule for this week as far as the Cup goes. Let's see, VIR on some of the road course schedules for the Ferrari GT3 and the Formula V cars. The ARCA Menard series, the ARCA car is at Indianapolis, so I might try that one. Gen 4 Cup also at Atlanta, but the 2008 one, so might want to try that one because the 2008 or the paved, or well, I guess before they repaved it, Atlanta was really nice, and especially back in the Gen 4 days when you had those classic Atlanta finishes from the mid 2000s. There, plenty of those that we saw, so that might be interesting, especially running up top. So might want to try that one. Let's see, other tracks here. We've got Tsukuba Circuit in the Global MX5 Cup, so might end up trying that one. The Lara IR01 at Pocono, so that might be interesting with essentially a cross between an F1 car and a kart era car that they've come up with in the sim at Pocono. That might be fun. And the Formula Fords at Virginia International Raceway VIR as well. So yeah, well, that'll be interesting to see. The Firecracker 400 E-Racer GG is coming up, so that should be fun. Pretty sure all the Kyle Busch, Dale Jr., a bunch of those guys be trying out for that. So hopefully be able to make that one and everything. I know there's, I think F123 is already out, and so that should be interesting to see there. So I should also mention the fact that I went go-karting this past Saturday out at Bushnell Motorsports Park. Ran really good. I think probably my best effort so far in terms of being able to have control and just have outright pace. One of the races that I did, I was able to keep up with one of the friends I went with, and I think I had 4 laps where I was really right on his tail, like trying to make force him into a mistake or try to go for the move. So at Bushnell, they have a bridge and a hill, and then that goes into a 180. And I was like one time I tried to fake a move to the inside and, wasn't quite ready to make the pass, but I tried to make him think about it. Then later on, I was trying to send it in there, but on another set of corners, after about the 4th lap, just tried to go for it in one of the other hairpin corners, and then ended up spinning out. So that was probably like one of the best pieces of racing I had. I mean, minus the spin out part, and I guess real karting, being right on somebody's tail. And then not only that, but there was a couple times where I lost a little bit of ground on corner exit and some of the other corners, but was able to catch right back up to his bumper and everything. So, that was really, really fun being able to do that. So I'm glad I was able to do that. And then plus, I guess there was another guy there that had his private kart that he was running before the rental portion of the day started. And then I guess he hung around for a bit and watched, I guess, our races. And then he came up to me and my friend and said, "Hey, if you're interested, we do a private league here with our pro style karts. And they have an event coming up later this month, I think on like the 23rd. So told me if I was interested. We traded Instagram handles and everything. So at Track Sports on TRAK Sports on Instagram if you're interested in looking at that. And we traded Instagram handles and everything. So he gave me the information and everything. So I just have to make the decision. I think we're going to do it. So I just had to make sure I don't have any other conflicts or anything. So on that day, because I think it's a Sunday. So we'll see if I think I should be able to do that. But it should be interesting running a pro kart if I'm able to. I think he said it was like 10 seconds faster than the rentals. So the rentals normal lap is about maybe 71.5 to 72 seconds or 73 seconds. And then this one, he said they run like a minute, 59-second laps. So I'm really interested to see how that plays out and having a lot more power. I feel like, for me, like, I having to have a lot of acceleration coming off the corner, I feel like that benefits me in my driving style. Like momentum, tracks or karts are good, but I think having driver input matters a whole lot in what you're able to do. Plus, you're going a lot faster, and I think I'd thrive in that. So I think I'll be able to do that. So that should be fun. But yeah, glad I was able to do good enough, to catch this guy's eye. So we'll see how this plays out and everything, and be able to do that. And then also they had a sim racing rig there with iRacing, and it's kind of a motion sim rig. So tried that out finally, because I think last time I did, they weren't able to get it set up. So tried that, and they have a Fanatec wheel there. So I'm thinking about buying a Fanatec wheel maybe later on this year. So it's good, $10, try before you buy if you're looking to get into upgrading sim equipment. I think it's well worth it. So I did that and ran the Corvette, or no, not the Corvette, but the Cadillac GTP hybrid, and that they run in IMSA. So as part of the new GTP class this year, so I ran that. So that was pretty fun being able to do that as well. So glad I was able to go karting with my friends, of course, and have the shared experience on the track and be able to have some fun on Saturday, and of course being able to potentially try out a new wheel there. But of course, for sim racing, you can follow the Twitch streams when I'm on there Twitch TV/UCO2, and go on there, watch all my streams and content, everything that I have on there. Previous highlights and past races, of course, and everything that you want to see on there, including that Indy 500 win, which we always bring up there. So that's on there. And of course, Twitter at JP Huffine, which you can follow all my takes and all my opinions and see what I'm interested in, and see what I might be seeing or agreeing with on Twitter and everything. And then of course my our YouTube channel, Gripster Podcast YouTube, at Gripster Podcast on there. Go on there and subscribe to our page, like our videos, comment, and interact with us. Hopefully continue to grow the channel. We seem to have an uptick in views lately. Our views with the Tommy Kendall show that we did a few weeks ago is doing pretty well on there, and being able to have that up there on YouTube for people to see, and have that great interview that we had. So go on there and watch that one if you want to, or just watch our videos in general. So yeah, glad to be able to do it for another week. Of course, Independence Day, like I said earlier, being able to get on here, glad to have the freedom to be able to do this, of course, and be able to record and have that ability. Of course, 1776, we are the champs. Gonna say it again. That's honestly, I think, one of my favorite quotes of all time. So
yeah.
Being able to do that.
And he wasn't even drunk yet. He wasn't even drunk either, and he yelled at.
He just said that right off the cuff. So that's what makes it so great. And it wasn't scripted either or anything like that. So yeah, that was a good quote. I'm gonna say it as always on this day. But yeah, happy 4th of July to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Independence Day, and it was it's a day to go and stuff yourself with lots of food and be with family and friends, and in a lot of cases try not to go and lose digits or limbs because of fireworks. So hopefully y'all made sure to do that safely. You can find me at Philip or PG Matthew 28 on Twitter. You can find us at Gripster Pod on Twitter. Josh already mentioned our great YouTube page where we put all the shows up there as well. You can find the Gripster Podcast at philipgmatthew.com. And basically, if you're listening to it, thanks as always, and please let your friends know about the GSP as we get through the summer, since we're going to have a lot to talk about. NASCAR is going to be on the rest of the year, Cup Series, so XFinity is going to be pretty busy as well. So a lot to talk about with those series. IndyCar is going to start winding down here coming next week. Second half of the season starts with the Honda Grand Prix of Toronto, Hinch's home race. And so we'll talk all about that. Alex Palou's drive for 4 in a row there. And we'll get into the British Grand Prix, what little we have to talk about with the British Grand Prix. Go through all 3 major NASCAR series at Atlanta and at Mid-Ohio, along with previewing New Hampshire for Cup and Xfinity next week, along with all the stuff that we discussed in the roundup. So, as always, Josh, thank you for all you do, and there's a car on the way. And so, for Josh and for myself, we'll see you next week on the GSP, episode 177. Figure after a wild card race at Chicago, we're going to have a wild card race at Atlanta. So we'll have plenty to digest after the weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Take care, and we'll see you next time.